Imagine yourself in this scenario. After years of working, of fighting, you've finally done it. 1 million subscribers, the pipe dream of thousands around the world. You're in the big leagues now. You can buy a house, become a musician, or do drugs. The world is at your fingertip. The money can pay for your crimes, and your power can get anyone into your bed. Now imagine yourself with hundreds of dollars of income per day, a fan base 1 million strong. What would you do? Maybe you would buy your mom a house and lived comfortably, or maybe the power would corrupt you, the greed taking over your morals, and lust taking over your reasoning. But is it the money that does this to you, or is it a predisposition? Now you may be wondering what the hell I'm on about, which is understandable. This essay is about YouTubers who are pedophiles and criminals because, fuck, YouTube has been getting absolutely railed by sexual predators being outed this year. I've briefly touched on this before in my What Do Alter Egos reveal about a YouTuber's character video, but this video is a much longer and in-depth video on power, pedophilia, and sick people. Chapter 1. Human Nature. Now, humanity is, well, humanity. These apes are quite... Well, I would drop an F-bomb, but I've already had my one and YouTube would crucify me. But humans can be terrible, or they can be kind. But we are all the good and all the bad that have been caused by sentience so far. So when some of us fall short of the bare minimum, they are shunned. The bare minimum being don't murder or rape. Now, contrary to what some basement dwellers may think, you probably shouldn't even be having sex until at bare minimum 14 to 15, and those encounters should never be with someone older than 17. Until the time you reach your nation's age of consent, no sexual encounters should occur with people over the age. Some people don't get that, though, which is very disgusting. But why do we see people in power not getting that basic rule so often? Well, the truth is, it's prevalent, and it's not just people in power. There are roughly 171,900 convicted sex offenders who committed a crime against a child in the United States alone, and those are just the ones who were caught. This is sub 1% of the population, however, and in relation to YouTube, sick men and women always seek power. That's why in power you always find degeneracy, and these corrupt people are like a pestilence. Pastors have been mocked as pedophiles for centuries because it was a powerful position, and power is pursued by the ill. We're seeing that now with politicians, recently actors, and soon YouTubers. Positions that make you feel untouchable will always have these issues. Online, I've seen some comments like, YouTubers can't control themselves, and the internet was a mistake. I've seen worse, like, the victims knew what they were doing, and pedos are valid? All of these are wrong for various reasons, and I'll start from worst to least worst. Pedophilia is not a valid sexuality. It is an illness. I can and will die on that hill. Offending pedophiles do not deserve society, and are in my eyes entirely subhuman. The non-offenders need clinical help before they lose their humanity, and if you think my views are extreme, you probably don't know how much damage child sexual assault can cause, and I'm not willing to debate my views. The victims, in these cases, are children. They did not know what they were doing because their brains are not developed. Kids can be stupid, but only an idiot thinks a 13-year-old can fully comprehend sex with someone well over 18. The internet was an advance. It's not a mistake. It just showed you all the terrible things we can do. And for every degenerate among YouTubers, there are 10 who are just people doing what they love. Now, the biggest issue in sexual assault claims and YouTube is false claims. In the modern era, claims being believed was already tentative, and one false claim proven false means that 10 true claims will be believed to be false. Some people are simply bitches who chase clout, and unfortunately some kids reflect this, but the fact is 90%. People do not have one thing: due diligence. When a claim is made, you shouldn't immediately believe the accuser and ruin someone's life. But you also shouldn't immediately call the accuser a liar. Logic, skepticism of both sides, and respect for both sides until one side is no longer worthy of that respect, is what is needed. Getting big is a dream of mine, but if I reached 1 million subscribers and then had a sexual assault claim, minor or otherwise, I would want every one of my viewers to have those 3 things. Chapter 2: Liars and YouTubers. I touched on this briefly in the last chapter, but some people have made false claims. Most of these were not minors, but they affect the claims made by everyone. James Charles had false claims made against him over a makeup deal, which slowed down Jeffree Star's victim. Slazo and Pro Jared were falsely accused, and that slows down Pyrocynical's inevitable fall, and nearly started a civil war in the commentary community. James Charles, Slazo, and Pro Jared all let the truth set them free, and they were vindicated. Slazo and Pro Jared were still stifled, though, and really only James Charles came out afloat from the false accusations, which was a situation by the beauty community imploding. But now, behold some YouTubers who were beaten by justice. Minilad, Pyrocynical, and Jeffree Star, and 18 other YouTubers in the last year were sexual predators, many of whom interacted with minors. But the claims and outings were slowed by a slim margin of clout chasers. This ties into what I call pendulum theory. Humans are like pendulums. We go very far one way, and then we are pushed, and will go all the way to the opposite. I came up with this when I learned about the French Revolution. The French went from getting rid of the monarchy because their freedom was important, and then became a witch hunt because killing the king didn't fix it. And then after the short democracy, Napoleon re-established monarchy. Prime and YouTube examples are Slazo and Pro Jared. These two were crucified before the situation was fully cleared. They lost part of their base before the base learned that the YouTubers were deceived if the claims were outright false. Now people who saw the shit show, or were directly involved, do the opposite. Again, Pyrocynical and how much force it took his community to abandon ship are a great example of this. Well, what comes after this? Well, I doubt the masses of the internet will decide to be reasonable, and the next YouTuber to have a false claim made against them will be nailed to a cross, just like Slazo and Pro Jared. On the bright side, as this happened, people who have seen the cycle will gradually stop swinging like pendulums do. Tying back to France, after Napoleon abdicated power, France settled in a democracy. If you're current on the drama I've just referenced, or maybe just a fan, a certain name may stick out. Pyrocynical. Is he a pedo? If you're a purist, absolutely. He messaged minors when he was no longer one. But if you're not a purist, he was only 19 at the time. While he was technically not grooming, it was still weird and creepy, and I'm glad he has this backlash. But so far, this video has only covered sexual degeneracy. What about other crimes? Chapter 3. Minimum isn't good. Well, if you heard the title card for this 3 to 8 minute portion of the video, doing the bare minimum as a human being is not applaudable, and just doing the bare minimum is not acceptable. You cannot be a rapist or a murderer and still be a complete piece of shit. Bigotry, greed, and in general being a prick will still make you a POS. The only difference between murder and rape and the rest of these is that you won't lose a fundamental piece of yourself, so you can still learn and change. Bigotry can be fixed, greed can be humbled, and being a prick is as simple as pulling a stick from a certain orifice sometimes. Unfortunately, very few YouTubers do change, and that change is often not really taken seriously. Jenna Marbles left the platform entirely, and she was taken seriously, but PewDiePie and hours of charity work isn't, mostly because of a pesky infestation of Nazis trying to convert his young masses, but that's a topic for another video. Shane Dawson is another YouTuber in this boat, but he fucks cats, so There are others who are problematic who refuse to be accountable. John Rich Blacks commit more crimes than poor whites Jafari, aka Jontron, is still at it, and as much as I love the man's humor, it's clear with some questionable references to the election and widespread misinformation that he hasn't changed. The Paul brothers and going off the deep end about flat earth and encouraging kids gambling is not okay, and their refusal to address or grow is an issue. Because YouTube is filled with confused teens looking for role models. And none of those people are role models. The ones who have changed are only admirable because they had the balls and self-awareness to change. Now let me introduce you to what is good. Markiplier. I can already hear the, "Oh, what a fanboy," from the people who disagree with me and are watching this video out of spite. And to you dislike trolls, I say, you're absolutely correct. I am okay with being called a fanboy for a decent human being with no problematic past who avoided racism and homophobia when that was the norm pre-adpocalypse. People often forget before 2016, racism, homophobia, and bigotry were like mosquitoes. And that stuff was the peak of comedy back then. Even then, I'm aware that Markiplier is not perfect, and even though I would be absolutely heartbroken if one of my few heroes was undeserving of my love, I would still have due skepticism and respect until the truth was clear. But how many of his 13 to 15-year-old fans would not do that? How many would refuse to believe it? Or worse, how many would ignore it? Markiplier was and is my idol. My entire aesthetic is bargain bin depressed author Markiplier, and a running gag in my channel's community is a time-traveling maniac with a luxurious green mustache. And there are people who admire him more than me, just as there are people who haven't learned the lessons I've learned. This might seem weird, but I've seen and been a part of pendulum theory. I'm grateful that at 17 I am self-aware enough to relatively avoid that fallacy. My sophomore year of high school, I had an acquaintance through band who we will call Carl. 2 years ago, Carl drifted into my hometown and settled into my only community 15-year-old me had: music. In marching band, everyone is family. You'll see each other in their undies. You'll smell them at their stankiest, and you'll sleep beside each other on the bus. So it was inevitable that Carl and I spent some time together, and like everyone in the band, got close as friends. One day, Carl told me about a time he was falsely accused. My first thought, I spend like 12 hours with this dude a week. He might be weird, but he moves a lot. I doubt this claim is true. Eventually, Carl skipped town, but it was later revealed that Carl lied, and it did happen, frequently. Before I swung too far, though, I asked myself if I should have been skeptical of Carl from the get-go, and be skeptical in the future. This story may seem long-winded, and it is, but my point is, how many people my age had a Carl in their lives? Heck, how many people in their 30s have a Carl? This isn't to be elitist or have an r/I am very smart moment. It's just that skepticism is a surprisingly new concept when it comes to people in power, and the internet has only exacerbated that. If a pillar of morality like Markiplier was outed, or accused as a criminal, or worse, a degenerate, most his fans don't have a Carl to draw from. And just like when others are outed or accused, no personal experience leads to a massive divide that slows things down while also permanently ruining a creator's reputation, unless they get the Uno reverse card of the century. The truth is, this is an entirely new world. We are explorers of social norms yet undefined, and what we do will directly impact how YouTube and the internet looks decades from now. But how do we punish those who fail to make bare minimum or fail to be decent? Chapter 4. Acting Right and Punishment. To punish, we have to first set what isn't right. I'll pull from a relatively non-problematic YouTuber for this. Dream. I enjoy me some Minecraft Manhunt even though I'm not the target audience of 8 to 13, because it's a fun idea and cool to watch. But Dream does not meet the minimum of good. not because he is an entirely bad person, but because he is unaware and ignorant of how his actions directly affect his young and impressionable viewers. His recent speedrun drama shows this, and his refusal to try and stop the toxic stan culture around him that leads to others being harassed shows he is unprofessional when questioned and doesn't care what his viewers do. Now, aside from these two things, I will reserve full opinions on the matter until the speedrun dust is settled. But regardless if he cheated or not, he can still be better about handling that. And caring about your subscribers and what they do is a massive part of being a YouTuber. I have 58 subscribers right now. But if I found out one of my subscribers was being toxic or worse, harmful to others, I would immediately review what I have done and reach out to someone they spend time with. Now, I understand, with 14 million subscribers that's not as reasonable, but you can still try and help. I am no paragon of morality. I cover questionable topics, and even though alt-right tiers on my QAnon video fuel me, a 57% like to dislike ratio is not the best look. Even though I and all others on YouTube with a passion generally mean the best, we will eventually make some kind of mistake without meaning to. But the truth is, mistakes are okay, as long as you learn from it. So in short, to be a good YouTuber, grow as a person. So now that we have properly established what is good, how do we punish? Cancel culture in its purest won't work, because cancel culture is a breeding ground for hate that makes uninspired people feel like they have done something important. And if you disagree, I have an entire video essay in the works about that, so stay tuned. Trusting authority is a bad idea, especially as YouTube gets more and more corporatist to survive. So that leaves a regulation to us in a healthy manner. No doxing, no undeserved banning. What we can do is just unsubscribe. As easy as it is to smash my red happy box and any other creators on this site, it's just as easy to unsmash and make it sad. If a creator is problematic, unprofessional, or spewing rhetoric that can and will hurt people, don't engage them. Debates make these kinds of people feel more right. Hate fuels them. Leaving them alone with themselves does the most damage, because they'll rant into a void forever, or they'll eventually go away or improve. In conclusion, your views matter a lot. So being aware is how we can prevent YouTube from being a place of pedophilia, criminals, and power. Only give power to those deserving, not a creep or a crack job. If you made it this far into the video, I would genuinely like to thank you for watching, and for giving me a slice of your time. I hope this was informative and somewhat thought-inspiring. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe? It's free and can always be undone if I annoy you. As always, have a wonderful time. Memento Mori.